Dr. Grace, listen, recently Obama gave an interview with 60 Minutes, that television program called 60 Minutes, and he said something absolutely astounding about America's intelligence community as it relates to ISIS. Give us your analysis of that.
Well, Carl, the president has been blamed by so many different quarters about what happened in Iraq, having lost Iraq to ISIS, now having to go back in there with airstrikes. He decided to give this interview to try to, basically a PR campaign, just trying to restore his reputation. And what he said there was, he said at one point that, yes, indeed, it was the intelligence community that vastly underestimated ISIS.
Right.
And, Carl, I've got to tell you something. This is one of the biggest mistakes of his presidency. There is now an open revolt amongst his military top brass and amongst the intelligence community.
I hope so.
The intelligence community is leaking like crazy to the press because basically Obama was saying that James Clapper dropped the ball. Right. And they are saying, no. We have known about this rising threat for 2 years, and it is included in the president's daily briefs. In fact, the Congress has come forward, especially people on the intelligence community like Michelle Bachmann, and she has said, no. We have known about this, and we even had a shouting match with the White House earlier this year telling them to get proactive.
Right.
So the president has been caught in a lie that is so blatant, that is so stark, that even his most ardent liberal supporters in the media are running away from him. This is an indefensible lie.
Right.
Because the one person who is responsible for having lost Iraq is the president. You even have Leon Panetta, the former defense secretary and head of the CIA, who's come out in a book saying the president made very, very little effort to keep our troops there. He used the Iraqi leadership's failure to sign a status of forces agreement as an excuse to get out because that's all he really wanted to do, contrary to everybody's advice.
Right.
And so the president has a real egg on his face because he said that ISIS was the JV team. He said that in January when the entire intelligence and defense community knew that that wasn't the case.
Right.
And so he comes across as somebody, and I'm not exaggerating, Carl, when I say this. Does he even watch the nightly news? Does he watch the nightly news? Because, Fallujah was falling. Big cities that our forces have secured or collapsing. He comes across as somebody that is totally disconnected from what is going on. And his attempt to salvage his reputation has backfired on him. And now what we're seeing is a revolt amongst people in his government. There are leaks to the press left, right, and center. And you're going to see that this is going to get worse and worse, in the sense that he's losing control over his ability to run the country because his leadership is transparently incompetent, and he keeps wanting to scapegoat people.
Right.
So what's happening with his government is like, oh my goodness, this ship is collapsing, this ship is going down, and I'm going to do everything I can to save my reputation. He's going to try to send me, throw me under the bus, and I'm not going to let it happen.
Right.
So what you have now is growing factionalism and disarray within practically every branch of the American government, based on the fact that he can't be trusted to lead, he can't be trusted to tell the truth. And we're now seeing leading members of the press also begin to back away from him because their credibility is on the line as well. I mean, so many of them, people that covered ISIS, for example, like Richard Engel at NBC News. I mean, he was there in Iraq. He saw the ISIS advance. I mean, there's no way that he can rally to the president's defense or anybody that wants any kind of credibility in their field, right. To rally to the president's defense regarding what he's saying about ISIS.
Right. And
now, on top of that, Carl, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and you know what else I hope, and then we're going to come back to on top of that. I hope that this leaking that you say is going on, and I believe it is. I mean, I'm hearing this everywhere, and you're really spiking it and backing it up. I hope that this leaking leads to more leaks from inside the IRS, from inside the Benghazi scandal, from inside the gun running scandal, from inside the NSA spying scandal. And I know there's some huge things coming in this whole birth certificate thing. I mean, just recently, some brand new huge stuff. I know this for a fact. I know it's coming. And now the environment is set where people will believe it. They will understand. And I've said all along, and I think people are going to see it very, very soon, that it all goes back to the foundation of this birth certificate. There's a reason why he lied about who he is and who is sitting in the commander-in-chief's seat. There is a reason, and America's getting ready to hear it, and all of this other stuff is tied to that foundation. Now go ahead.
Well, you know, Carl, look, the lies are now, I mean, they're transparent. You see, that's what's different in this second term. They're so transparent. Remember when the President said we were going to attack Syria? He said there's this group, the Khorasan group. We've got to get this Khorasan group. Well,
right.
not many of us had heard of this Khorasan group. Suddenly the press was asking, well, who's this Khorasan group? So you had this idiot that works at the State Department, the State Department spokesperson, Jen Psaki, who should never have been hired and who should be immediately fired. She told the press, that's an affiliate of Al-Qaeda. Well, she was contradicted by the Secretary of State. He said, no, the Khorasan group contains core members of Al-Qaeda. And the person that speaks for the Pentagon, Mr. Kirby, also said the Khorasan group contains core members of Al-Qaeda. So let me simplify it. Al-Qaeda is posing an imminent threat to the United States, and that is why the President wanted to launch these recent strikes in Syria. That's one of the reasons, as well as combating ISIS. So this is another lie that has been blown wide open. The Khorasan group is just another way of trying to rename Al-Qaeda. And remember,
and when you stop and remember that Al-Qaeda is just a branch of the Muslim Brotherhood, and the Muslim Brotherhood is in the White House.
Well, you know what? This is one of the key points, Carl, is that during the election campaign, they kept telling us that Al-Qaeda was on the run. And then when the press kept pressing and saying, well, wait a minute, no, there's so many offshoots all over the world, the President and his spokespeople kept saying, well, there's a difference between core Al-Qaeda and the Al-Qaeda affiliates. And folks like you and I were saying, oh, that's a bunch of nonsense.
Right.
Al-Qaeda is Al-Qaeda, and
Right.
I don't care how they rename themselves. And
Right.
we kept saying it's not true. Well, now they've been exposed in this sense, that even core Al-Qaeda that they claimed was decimated, even that is not been decimated. Not only has it not been decimated, it poses an imminent threat worse than during the Bush years.
Yep.
So he couldn't come forward now and fess up to that, and that's why they created this scam of the Khorasan group is what we need to attack in Syria.
Right.
So it is literally, it is true that things are falling apart at the seams. And you know what's falling apart at the seams? It's this presidency.
I pray so. Have you heard, and this is just speculation and rumors, but it's all over the internet, this rumor that supposedly is coming from some top sources that right after the November elections, people are speculating that Obama might even resign because all of this stuff is catching up with him, all the leaking, and that some big smoking guns are getting ready to come forward. Are you hearing any of that?
Well, it's still at the level of a murmur, so nothing that I could say definitively. We
Right.
can,
hang
that on. But remember this, that it took a while for Eric Holder to resign.
Yeah.
And you and I said that eventually he was going to have to resign.
Right.
And in fact, the big news within the last couple of weeks is that he did resign because basically he had put himself in a box. I mean, you can only lie and be incompetent for so long. Sooner or later, that's going to catch up with you.
Right.
Now, in this case, the Democrats have no other choice. They have to do everything they can to poop him up because their fortunes in 2016 are linked to him.
Right, exactly.
So we'll see what happens. There is a murmur of that, but I think that if we continue in this track where you have a crisis every week or every second week, a crisis, as you and I were saying, of almost biblical proportions.
Yeah.
We're talking about Ebola coming to our shores. We're talking about ISIS telling its members to behead Americans in their bed. I mean, we're talking about a growing fear among the American people, and not a fear founded on fantasy, but a fear founded on fact. that is rising, and I think that it's going to lead to dramatic changes in the next couple of months. I think right now, even a week and a half ago, some were saying that the Democrats were running neck and to the Ebola crisis. The president has just kissed the Senate goodbye. And we'll see if those murmurs now are going to grow into yells in order to force him out.
Right. Okay. Good deal. Fantastic reporting today, Dr. Grace. Thank you.